On the morning of my wedding, my fiancé vanished before the ceremony even began. The only things he left behind were two handwritten letters resting on the polished oak dresser inside our bridal suite at a luxury ranch outside Dallas, Texas. The first letter accused me of murder. According to him, I had secretly orchestrated the highway crash that had killed nearly the entire Carter family 8 years earlier. He claimed I had manipulated the accident to eliminate the only woman he had ever truly loved, Savannah Carter. The second letter was even worse. It wasn't written to me. It was a confession addressed to Savannah. He admitted that she had always been the love of his life and that agreeing to marry me had been nothing more than a business arrangement forced upon him by his late father's will. He wrote that I had become obsessed with him, that I couldn't accept losing him, and that I destroyed Savannah's family to force him into marriage. Savannah survived the crash, but according to the letter, the trauma shattered her mind. She had supposedly spent years recovering in an exclusive psychiatric clinic somewhere in Switzerland. Unable to live with the guilt, Ethan claimed he had decided to end his own life. He apologized to the world. He donated every dollar of his inheritance to charity. He begged the authorities to reopen the Carter investigation and finally bring me to justice. Within an hour, every local news station in Texas was broadcasting the story. The beautiful wedding at Blue Mesa Ranch instantly transformed into the state's biggest scandal. But while everyone else believed my fiancé was dead, I already knew he wasn't, because only minutes earlier, a version of Ethan who looked almost 10 years older had somehow stepped into my life. When I first entered the bedroom, he had already disappeared again. No body, no explanation. Only his warning still echoed inside my head. Don't believe anything that happens today. Then the police arrived. Sirens shattered the peaceful country air. Guests were separated into different buildings across the ranch. Every entrance was sealed. Every phone call was monitored. As the woman accused in Ethan's final letters, I became the center of the investigation. They locked me alone inside the estate's old library. Every sharp object had already been removed. Even the antique letter opener that usually sat on the desk was gone. Someone clearly believed I might panic. Instead, I simply waited. About 20 minutes later, the heavy wooden door slowly opened. A man stepped inside. It was Ethan, alive. My heartbeat nearly stopped. He looked exactly like the groom I had kissed earlier that morning, except his face carried years of exhaustion. Fine lines surrounded his eyes. His shoulders sagged beneath the expensive tuxedo. His wedding ring looked worn from years of use. He quickly locked the door behind him before turning toward me. "I barely made it," he whispered. His voice trembled. I stared at him without speaking. "You died?" "No," he answered. "I never died." He took several hurried steps toward me. "Claire, listen carefully. My name is Ethan Walker. I'm from 10 years in the future." Everything inside me wanted to laugh. Instead, I couldn't breathe. He grabbed both of my shoulders. "The wedding is fake. My death is fake. I planned all of it." Each sentence landed like another bullet. "I've been having an affair with Savannah Carter for years. I couldn't marry you and still inherit my father's fortune. So we created a plan. I disappear. You become the villain. We escape overseas." I slowly pulled away from his hands. "No." His eyes filled with tears. "I wish I were lying. My father only agreed to leave me Walker oil because his will required me to legally marry you. He believed your father saved my life. He wanted to repay that debt. So Savannah and I looked for another way. The fake suicide, the charity, the accusations. It was all designed to make everyone stop looking for me." I felt the room begin to spin. My father had died rescuing Ethan during an explosion at one of Walker Energy's drilling sites. After that tragedy, his father practically raised me as family. He promised my mother that I would always have a place beside them. For years, I believed Ethan loved me. Maybe not passionately, maybe not dramatically, but honestly. Now, everything felt like a carefully rehearsed performance. Ethan lowered his voice. "Claire, you have no idea what happens to you after I leave." My arms, forcing myself to stay calm. "What happens to me?" I asked, Future Ethan couldn't meet my eyes. The entire country turns against you. The letters become national news. Every television station, every podcast, every newspaper repeats the same story. They don't ask whether you're guilty. They simply assume you are. He swallowed hard. Within 3 weeks, Harrison and Cole fires you. The words hit harder than I expected. I had spent years building my career at one of Dallas's most respected law firms. Every late night, every impossible case, every promotion, gone. Why? I whispered. They said your reputation damaged the firm's image. He looked down, but that wasn't the worst part. I already knew I wasn't going to like what came next. You were pregnant. The room fell silent. Even the ticking grandfather clock seemed to stop. My hand instinctively rested against my stomach. Pregnant? After years of doctors telling me my chances were almost impossible. After endless appointments, treatments, false hope. There was a baby? Ethan nodded. You never had the chance to tell me. A sharp pain spread through my chest. My father had dreamed of holding his grandchild one day. Before he died, he used to joke that he'd spoil every grandkid with horseback rides across the ranch. That dream had apparently become real, only to disappear before I even knew it existed. What happened? I asked. Future Ethan closed his eyes. The stress, the harassment, the threats. You stopped sleeping. You barely ate. One night you collapsed. He paused. You lost the baby. I couldn't speak. He continued anyway. I wanted everything to calm down after we disappeared. But Savannah thought you were too smart. She believed you'd eventually discover we were alive. So we hired a reputation management company. I frowned. A reputation company? They created fake witnesses, anonymous posts, leaked documents. They flooded social media. They made sure every search about your name returned the word murderer. A cold feeling settled inside me. Savannah had studied journalism. She understood public opinion better than almost anyone. She knew that facts didn't matter, only headlines. And my mother? My voice barely escaped. Future Ethan hesitated. She believed you. For a while. But reporters camped outside her house every day. Students stopped attending her lectures. Her university opened an ethics review. They said keeping her employed hurt the school's reputation. I slowly sat down in one of the leather chairs. My mother devoted 30 years to teaching. She never cared about politics, never cared about fame. She only cared about her students. Ethan nodded. I know. She tried defending you, but nobody listened. He rubbed his forehead. I should have stopped it. You could have. He didn't argue, because we both knew it was true. Instead, he whispered, I stayed silent. I looked toward the rain-covered windows. Outside, police officers still walked across the ranch, somewhere nearby. The younger Ethan was hiding, preparing to disappear forever. What happened after I lost my job? I asked. Future Ethan answered almost immediately. You sold your apartment. You couldn't keep paying the mortgage. You started taking temporary work. Receptionist, night clerk, private assistant. But every employer searched your name online, and every interview ended the same way. He looked sick just remembering it. So eventually, you accepted a job at an exclusive members-only lounge in downtown Dallas. I frowned. A lounge? He nodded. It catered to wealthy businessmen, politicians, oil executives. The pay was enough to survive, but everyone there knew your story. The other women mocked you. The clients whispered. Some even asked if you'd really killed an entire family. His voice cracked. I told myself it wasn't my fault. I convinced myself you'd recover. I kept believing everything would somehow fix itself. I slowly stood. And did it? He remained silent. That silence told me everything. I walked toward the bookshelf without looking at him. You promised my father something. He didn't answer. You stood beside his grave. You looked my mother in the eyes. You swore you'd protect us. Still, nothing. So tell me, when exactly did that promise stop meaning anything? The only sound inside the library was Ethan quietly crying behind me. Neither of us spoke. Rain tapped softly against the tall library windows, while voices echoed faintly outside. Somewhere on the ranch, detectives were still searching for a body that had never existed. Finally, Ethan broke the silence. I never stopped caring about you. I let out a quiet, bitter laugh. Caring? I turned to face him. You destroyed my life and you call that caring? His shoulders slumped. I told myself I was protecting Savannah. She was pregnant. Everything we had built depended on keeping the truth buried. I stared at him in disbelief. So every decision you made was a choice. He nodded slowly. Yes. And every time you had a chance to tell the truth, I chose not to. The honesty should have felt refreshing. Instead, it made me hate him even more. What happened after the lounge? I asked. His breathing grew heavier. You didn't give up. A faint spark appeared in my chest. You enrolled in online classes. You studied international law during the day. You worked nights. You barely slept. But you refused to quit. I could almost picture it. A tiny apartment, stacks of textbooks, coffee growing cold beside an old laptop, a woman trying to rebuild a future no one believed she deserved. You were accepted into a graduate program at the University of Edinburgh. I blinked. Scotland? He nodded. It was everything you'd dreamed of. You planned to leave Texas forever. You told your mother you'd never look back. For the first time since he'd arrived, I felt something close to hope. Then I looked at his face. The hope disappeared. What did you do? His lips trembled. I found out the campus was only a short flight from where Savannah and I were living. He couldn't even look at me. I panicked. My stomach tightened. I contacted someone on the university's board. I forged evidence. I claimed you had committed academic fraud. The admission offer was withdrawn. They blacklisted your application. Every word landed like another stone on my chest. Years of studying, months of sacrifice. Gone. Because he was afraid I might accidentally see him. You stole my future, I whispered. I know. You stole my career. I know. You stole my child. Tears rolled down his face. I know. I walked closer until only a few feet separated us. You stole my name. He closed his eyes. I know. Silence settled between us once again. Finally, he whispered, I've replayed that moment every day for 10 years. I thought if I erased one opportunity, you'd simply find another. But every door I closed pushed you somewhere darker. He looked years older than when he'd entered. I didn't understand what I was turning you into. I folded my arms. And what did I become? His face went pale. You survived. The answer surprised me. You never stopped fighting. You kept applying. You kept studying. You volunteered for legal aid clinics. You even started writing articles under a fake name. A tiny smile almost formed on my lips. Almost. You were stronger than I ever deserved. His voice cracked again. And that's why I finally built the machine. He slowly raised his wrist. The strange watch glowed with faint blue light beneath his sleeve. I couldn't live with knowing I destroyed the best person I'd ever known. The light suddenly flickered. A sharp pulse flashed across the room. Ethan grabbed his wrist in pain. His eyes widened. I don't have much time left. I stared at the device. What happens when the battery dies? He looked at me with quiet fear. I disappear. And everything depends on what you choose next.